Hi, I'm Teresa and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my August wrap up. So kind of following the trend of my previous two videos, I've read even less this month than previously. Whoops. But I'm kind of trying not to feel bad about that in any way. I feel like there's a lot of pressure to read a lot on BookTube, and honestly 5 books a month before I started BookTube would have been incredible, so I'm just trying to keep that up. But yes, I've read 5 books this month and I'm just gonna talk about them a bit today. The first book I read was In the Role of Brie Hutchins by Nicole Melleby. This is a middle grade book and it follows a main character called Brie who gets herself in a bit of trouble and catches herself in a lie, really, after her mum walks in on her accidentally looking at inappropriate pictures of her favourite actress. And Brie lies and says that she's been chosen to crown Mary at her school. She goes to a Catholic school, this is a big deal. And her mum's just so distracted by pride that she forgets what she'd seen Brie doing. And Brie's not been chosen. No one's been chosen, and Brie doesn't think it's possible that she's going to be chosen because this is such an honour and it only goes to the top student, and Brie is not. So she starts working to try and become a better student and to try and get this. And she's also pursuing theatre. She really wants to go to a theatre school. She's a big fan of soap operas. And she's also starting to figure out her sexuality and having first crushes and making new friends. And it's just such a wholesome book. I really enjoyed reading this. And I found that although it's a middle grade, it didn't read so young that I struggled with it, or that I felt like I wasn't at all the target audience, which is the opposite of another middle grade I'm going to talk about later. But it was so good. It had me tearing up towards the end. A lot of Bree's relationship with her mum just hit home and things like that, and yeah, I really did enjoy reading this. The next book I read was an arc of The Reckless Afterlife of Harriet Stoker by Lauren James. This was very good as well, and it's going to be featuring in an upcoming video of spooky queer book recs, so that tells you all you need to know, really. This book follows Harriet Stoker, who trips and falls and has a tragic accident in an abandoned halls of residence at her university, and she dies and she wakes up a ghost. And she's not the only ghost there, she's surrounded by all the students who all mysteriously died one night, I think like 25 years ago, and they've got their kind of own society and way of living here, and she's trying to just adjust to that life, but she's desperate to go home and see her grandmother, and she realizes that her parents' ghosts would also be trapped at her grandmother's house the same way she is trapped at the halls of residence, because that's where they died, and she's desperate to try and find a way to go and see them. And there's powers, and there's just really cool mystery thriller elements to it. And additionally, Harriet is pansexual, and this is not a huge deal at all. It's not a massive part of the story, but it's there on the page. And the book is also told through multiple perspectives, though it's primarily Harriet. And you've got a gay and a bi-side character as well, and it's just very cool. Basically, it's a really fun book, and I really enjoyed the mystery kind of element to it, and oh, it's so good. I highly recommend that as well. The next book I read was Flawed by Cecilia Ahern. So this is a book that has been sitting on my shelf for years, and I finally picked it up, and like it wasn't bad is what we'll say. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was very average, and I can barely remember what happened, which probably tells you a lot about it. It just didn't grip me or catch my attention, and I have chosen not to continue with the series because I honestly don't care. This follows a girl called Celestine, and she lives in this society, in this kind of not so distant future dystopian society, where people who commit immoral acts are branded as flawed, and they get, depending on the punishment, you can have an F burned onto like your tongue, your hand, your foot, your chest, somewhere else, your forehead. And there's a whole judicial system, and although the acts that the flawed commit are not necessarily illegal, therefore they're not imprisoned. They're deemed flawed and branded as such so that everyone can know to kind of avoid them, and the flawed live as outcasts and they really don't have many rights. And Celestine is from a very privileged family, and her boyfriend's father is actually the head of the judicial for deciding who is flawed and judging that. And so she's very involved in this society, and she's never had any kind of reason to question it until her close family friend who lives across the street is dragged out of her house and branded right in front of her, and it really just it hits home. It's not something she's ever witnessed before, and it gets her thinking a bit, and eventually she ends up committing an act and aiding a flawed man, which is not allowed. It's actually illegal. She ends up in this system herself and going through a trial to determine whether or not she is flawed. This is a kind of book I probably would have enjoyed more if I'd read it when I got it, when dystopia was just such a big thing, and I really just loved it. But now I was just less entertained, really. That being said, it was a really easy and quick read, so I do recommend it for that. But it's just not really interested me enough to continue, to be honest. Next up, we've got The Scapegracers by Hannah Abigail Clark, and this book is a new favourite of mine. I am in love. So I read an arc of this, it comes out later this month, and whew, so good. So this follows your main character called Sideways Pike, and she is a teenage lesbian witch, and she's an outcast until the popular girls at school invite her to their Halloween party to perform a magic trick, a spell for them, and Sideways just ends up falling in with their group, and there's a bit of a mystery element, and just so much bonding of the girls and their friendship, and it's so good. So this book has got just the most gorgeous female friendship and portrayal of that, and it's so heartwarming, and I just want to be part of it. And it also subverts so many common tropes, such as, the not like other girls, the competitive mean girls, the strong female character, things like that. And it just makes them so much better and turns it into this story of just such supportive girls and girls that get power from being feminine and those that don't. But there's no, that typical strong female character who looks down on femininity and things generally considered girly and things like that. And there's none of that, and it's just so good. And the magic, I loved it. I loved the way it was written. The writing style, I really, really enjoyed as well. It's such a good teenaged voice, and the writing's just full of references to the witchcraft and such, and it's quite gothic and ornate and lovely like that. And oh, it's so good. And it's also got Sideways calling herself a lesbian on page, and you've got other sapphic characters, and it's just such a fun time. I love it so much. just it's just girls being so incredibly supportive and just being such good friends, and they're just cursing horrible guys together and trying to get Sideways a girlfriend, and also dealing with magic and some bad things happening, but so much good and positivity, and it's just so fun, and I so highly recommend it. The final book I read this month was Life of Riley Beginner's Luck by Simon James Green. So this is Simon James Green's middle grade debut. Oh my god, his name's a tongue twister. So this book's got all of Simon James Green's humour that he has in his YA books, but to fit a new audience, and I'd say it's quite young middle grade, and it's a lot of fun, and you've got friendships and some important messages, and your main character is a boy who likes feminine kind of things stereotypically, like dancing and singing and musical theatre, and that's never a kind of point of mocking or anything like that. It's very much positivity. So this follows a main character called Riley, and he goes to Fun Fair to get his fortune told, and he ends up pissing off the fortune teller a bit and ends up cursed. And then he ends up cursed 1,000 times over because he just makes it worse. So it's just Riley facing a lot of bad luck and trying to reverse the curse. And then you've also got a new kid showing up at his school called Brad, and Brad is very cool and he's got such a good stationery collection. And Riley just desperately wants to be his friend, but how can he? Because he's so worried about his curse and if it might hurt Brad. Oh, it was so fun. So what I was saying earlier when I was talking about in the role of Brie Hutchins is that it felt very much like I could still enjoy it perfectly as a 19-year-old rather than a middle grade aged 12-year-old or so maybe, without having to kind of remind myself this is a middle grade, you shouldn't expect too much more from it. But I didn't have that same experience with Life of Riley because a lot of just the humour from it is suited to a younger audience, and that's not a criticism because that's the audience it's written for, but it made it less appealing and less engaging for an older audience. So rather than recommending it to you, I'm probably more likely to recommend it to if you've got younger siblings or such, because I just really think they'd enjoy it. I'm probably gonna give this copy away so that a younger reader can get it and appreciate it more than I probably could. But yes, I still believe that this is a good book, and because it's Simon James Green and he writes queer YA, I'm kind of waiting to see if the series may someday end up being queer, which would be really, really cool to see for a middle grade series. And that's it. That's my August wrap up. So this has been a bit of a shorter video, I think. And honestly, it's good for you, it's good for me editing and captioning. I can't complain. But hopefully next month I will have a bit of a longer wrap up because this is my last month before university starts and I really don't think I'll have much time to read then. So I'm not sure what'll be happening with booktube and how I'd be filming wrap ups because I don't think there'd be many books in them. So basically we shall see, and I'll keep you updated on how that's going to go. I'm trying to get some stuff pre-filmed, but booktube is quite time consuming and I have a habit of falling very behind on uni, so we'll see how that goes. But don't worry, I'll still be here and I'll still try and keep up to date. So thank you for watching this and I'll see you in another video soon.